Hello everybody and a very warm welcome to Jerez de Frontera for the 13th round of the 2016 Euroformula Open season. We have only just caught our breath after that magnificent race in Monza at the start of the month. And now we come to the end of October and this final run-in of 4 races to crown our 2016 champion. 4 races across 8 days here in Jerez and then on to Barcelona. Well, it's a very warm welcome from myself, Ben Evans, to a glorious day. 26 degrees, not a cloud in the sky, and a very large crowd here to enjoy the action from the Euroformula Open. The fun fair is up and running, and the action on track promises to be absolutely fantastic as well over the next 18 laps. The pit lane is open. The cars heading to the grid, and when they do line up, it is going to be the American driver Colton Herta who lines up in pole position. Herta, of course, who had that fantastic double victory at the Red Bull Ring at the start of September, which at one point looks as if it might bring him into the title fight. Proved not to be the case, but the American driver is steadily accumulating the points and has moved up to 3rd in the championship standings as a result. But at the top of the pile it is, of course, Leonardo Pulcini, and Pulcini carrying a very healthy 64-point advantage over Ferdinand Habsburg, although once drop scores are taken into account, it does drop down to 54 points. It means that Pulcini can't claim the title today, but if he were to finish ahead of the Austrian in both races, then it could well give him the crown tomorrow. But for now, everybody fully focused on the task at hand, and in particular, the charge towards the first corner. The drivers are expecting a physically attritional race in the heat and the high G-forces generated by the massive corner speeds of these Euroformula Open cars. But on the track where overtaking can sometimes be very, very tricky, then the start is going to be all important. As the cars starting to take their places on the grid. This, of course, not only is it the 13th race of the Euroformula Open season, it's the 3rd race of the Spanish Formula 3 Championship as well, which will be decided by the results from Estoril here in Jerez and then Barcelona next weekend. We've got one car at the back of the grid, which has possibly parked slightly out of position. Not that that's of any concern for Colton Herta, the American, chasing his 3rd victory of the season. The American in his first season in the championship. It's also his team Carlin's first season. Second on the grid for Damiano Fioravanti. The Italian driver has been consistent throughout the course. Here he comes into the weekend 5th in the championship fight, but really looking to add to that breakthrough victory that he scored at Monza over a year ago. This is the man who they've all tried to beat and largely failed to do in 2016. Leonardo Pulcini at the wheel of the Campos racing car. The Italian driver receives a last word of advice and encouragement from team principal Adrian Campos. And this is Pulcini's sole championship rival now. Ferdinand Habsburg, the Austrian driver, 2nd in the standings. Just 1 victory to his name this year in the DriveX car, but he was the man to beat in free practice yesterday. A very, very warm welcome to the series for Harrison Scott, immediately bang on the pace in the Teo Martin Motorsport car. Scott, who finished well up in the Formula Renault 2-litre Euro Cup this year with 3 victories along the way. Really relishing the car this weekend, and but for a track limits infringement would have been higher up the grid. 6th on the grid for Diego Menchaca, 4th in the championship, looking to bounce back after the disappointment of his collision with teammate Julio Moreno in race 2 in Monza. And then 7th on the grid for the Colombian Tatiana Calderon. 1 trip to the podium this season for her in the RP Motorsport car. But 7th offers the possibility of maybe snatching a trip to the rostrum. 8th on the grid for Amaya Weidenathan in the second of the Carling cars, and it is his teammate Kevin Andres who lines up to the inside of the 5th row in 9th, tapping along on the steering wheel to the rhythm of We Will Rock You, which is blasting out on the circuit public address system. And then completing the top 10, it's going to be the first of the BVM cars in the hands of the Chinese driver Yihong Li. Here's the grid in full then. Colton Herta and Damiano Fioravanti on row 1. Pulcini and Habsburg, the championship rivals, on row 2. Row 3, Harrison Scott shining on his debut so far, and Diego Menchaca, head of Tatiana Calderon and Amaya Weidenathan. 5th row of the grid, Kevin Andres and Yihong Li. Then it's Nikita Zlobin completing a good qualifying for the Teo Martin squad, and Tanart Sathian Thirakul. Anthony Patat will have been disappointed with 13th, but he races well. And Vasily Romanov makes his debut with the second Drivex car, clear of Kandati Kasiri and Julio Moreno. With then Daniel Pranenko and Gulhaizen Abdullayev to complete the field. 18 laps or 35 minutes is going to be the race distance. Provided we don't really have a prolonged safety car, we should get all our laps in. Now, the main points to consider are going to be the run to the first corner. It's a very short sprint, but track position is going to be all important. Secondly, it's going to be how the drivers manage the Michelin tyre over the course of the race, because in this heat they know that they're going to have to be reasonably gentle so they can ask of the tyre late on if they're looking to push up through the order. Crowd karaoke continues. So the car's about to be released on to the formation lap ahead of the 13th race of the Euroformula Open season. Thank you very much for joining us in Jerez this afternoon. As the drivers under the umbrellas in the cockpits, it's a very warm day, and the 26 degrees air temperature compounded by the fact that the sun is beating down remorselessly. Given that the longest straight on this Jerez circuit is just 600 metres or so, it means the drivers won't get a rest, and therefore driver fitness will really start to come to the fore. They were all looking to hydrate as much as possible before the race, before they got into the cars on the grid. Managing the tyres is going to be very important, as is fighting for track position on this first lap. In terms of the championship then, Pulcini 64 points clear of Ferdinand Habsburg. That drops to 54 points once we take into account dropped scores. It means that the Italian cannot win the championship today, and indeed if it were to remain a 54-point gap on drop scores, the championship fight would continue to Barcelona. But the task for Ferdinand Habsburg, in order to keep the battle alive to the last couple of races of the season, is to finish ahead of the Italian in both races, if he can, comfortably so. Consultation underway in the Carling garage. They have got better and better through the year as they have really understood what it needs to win racing the Euroformula Open. And Colton Herta has been the man leading their charge. Proud father looks on as he waits to see how Ferdinand Habsburg is able to progress from 4th on the grid. Colton Herta leads them away onto the formation lap. This short uphill squirt towards the first corner. The camera angle actually levels off that slope somewhat. It really is quite a steep climb. And then as they come out of turn 1 in towards turn 2, against a short sprint, but if you're too tight through the first corner, it does open the door to challenge into turn 2. They then swing out of the second corner and into the first to embrace the left-handers at turns 3 and 4. That's where the speed starts to open up, particularly through turn 4, as we take a check on the championship standings. So Pulcini and Habsburg, the only two drivers who can mathematically claim the crown. And it's also between Habsburg and Herta in the rookie championship fight as well. And then it's down the back straight towards the hairpin at turn 6. This is one of the better overtaking opportunities if you can get right up behind the car in front as you come out of turn 5. And it's more left-handers again in ever increasing speed. Into a sequence of right-handers towards the end of the lap. Tatiana Calderon returning to the series this weekend, and there is the Teo Marti Motorsport car of Harrison Scott making his debut in the championship, really enjoying the extra power on offer, the British driver, and getting the car to do exactly what he wants it to do. He could well be an outside challenge for the podium this afternoon. Of course, in the Euroformula Open, all the drivers equipped with the Dallara F312 chassis. They all run on the control compound Michelin tyre, and then in the difference to other Formula 3 series, the engine and other key components on the car are all control parts supplied by the championship promoters, GT Sport, which helps to keep the costs at a very reasonable level, really puts the premium as well on driver setup and then race ability. Anxious eyes in the DriveX pit box as the blue car of Colton Herta peels into pole position. It's the silver, black and orange car of Fioravanti who lines up on the right-hand side of the screen. That's the red car, white nose of Pulcini, the silver and yellow car of Ferdinand Habsburg, who completes the second row of the grid. They are the drivers who we will look to fight for the lead into turn 1. The last couple of cars rolling into position. Pranenko comes to a halt now, so does Abdullayev. Green flag at the rear of the field. We're about to go racing for the 13th time this season as the red lights are on. They're out. It's a great start from Colton Herta as Pulcini bogs down a little bit but should hold on to third. He might fight for a little bit more. It's Habsburg who could lose out because Harrison Scott's made an excellent start and darts ahead of Pulcini and Habsburg, and the Austrian gets pushed wide. He might lose more ground as Ben Charka is able to squeeze past in the second Campos car and pushes Habsburg out very, very wide. And Ferdinand Habsburg has dropped down to 7th as Tatiana Calderon also gets the jump on him. So Pulcini 2 places clear of Habsburg already through this first lap. Nikita Zlobin looks to challenge the inside of Amaya Weidenheithen as they head into the 5th turn. They're all cleanly through, and Herta leads, Fioravanti 2nd, Scott 3rd, Pulcini 4th. Yihong Li and Kevin Andres disputing further down the pack, as is Nikita Zlobin, who's got RP Motorsport cars swarming all over his tail. It's been a good start as well from Daniel Pranenko in the BVM car. He's gained a lot of ground up into 14th. So Hong Li and Andres continues to battle. Julio Moreno looks to the inside of Vasily Romanov. Now there is Ferdinand Habsburg down to 7th, Pulcini in 4th. And that's potentially advantage Pulcini in the championship. It's going to give him an additional 6 points or thereabouts on Ferdinand Habsburg. Makes the Austrians' task even harder for tomorrow, but there's a lot of racing to be done first. But the first lap has been completed cleanly. Colton Herta leading the way, in some way clear of Damiano Fioravanti, with Harrison Scott in 3rd. Running wide further back was Amaya Weidenheithen. That leaves him into the clutches of Nikita Zlobin. There is the white Teo Marti Motorsport car challenging the blue machine of Weidenheithen. The Indian covers the inside line. Zlobin looks to the outside. Just runs out of road slightly. It allows Anthony Patak the opportunity to challenge as well. And then Tunat Sathyanthirikul just behind. Kandidi Kasiri is probably the driver who's had the worst of the first laps. He's been shuffled down to 18th. Tatiana Calderon up into 6th, trying to chase Diego Menchaca. And then Ferdinand Habsburg in 7th. Possibly advised to bide his time. Well, that's robust defending there. Anthony Patak on teammate Sathyanthirikul. They're all a little bit quicker out of turn 5 than Nikita Zlobin, but Zlobin's got the track position and places his car beautifully into the hairpin. It's nothing the Polish driver can do. And Zlobin holds his nerve as well into the first of the left-handers. Patak jostles this way and that. Julio Moreno also trying to challenge Daniel Pranenko. Pendenko has lost out to Vasily Romanov already over the course of this second lap. And Abdullayev and Kasiri to complete the field. Now the fight for third coming alive. Harrison Scott under a little bit of pressure here from Leonardo Pulcini. Here is another look at the end of the first lap, and that would be why Kasiri's dropped to the rear of the field. It's the fight for third that's the one to watch, because with a little bit of defence here from Harrison Scott, it could well make it a 5-car train. Harrison Scott knows the Jerez circuit from his time in Formula Renault 2-litre racing. Saying just how much he was enjoying the car during free practice and testing, but now he's got the championship leader, Leonardo Pulcini, asking all the questions, and Pulcini able to get into that turbulent air behind Scott as they head towards turn 5. It forces Harrison Scott to the inside. Pulcini's going for a brave one, looking to the outside, and now Harrison Scott will have to keep it tight on the exit. Surely this is an opportunity for Pulcini. Instead he drops back, he came out of the throttle. It opens up an opportunity for Diego Menchaca, his Campos teammate. I'd imagine unlikely to risk anything unless he's very confident in finding a way past. But it allows Tatiana Calderon in the RP Motorsport car, that's the silver and black machine, to close to the tail of the blue car of Diego Menchaca. Immediately though, Pulcini trying to come back onto terms with Harrison Scott. Scott knows what he can ask of the car aerodynamically, but as he holds on in third, it allows Herta and Fiorvanti to romp clear at the front of the field. There is Ferdinand Hansberg in 7th, but staying in touch. Then the gap back to Kevin Andres in 8th, from Yihong Li and Amaya Vaidonathan to complete the top 10 as they come to the end of the third lap of the race. Herta's lead some 2 seconds over Fiorvanti. It's another couple of seconds back to Harrison Scott. So for the Carlin team, this is exactly what they'd be hoping for. Pulcini possibly thinking about lining up another run for Harrison Scott. Scott, 3 times a winner in the 2-litre Euro Cup this year. Been racing internationally for a few seasons now. There you see what it all means in terms of the championship, and it really does make for an uphill task for Ferdinand Habsburg tomorrow. He needs to, if at all possible, find some way through as Pulcini challenges Scott for third into the hairpin, and Harrison Scott slithers out wide. Pulcini tries to stay alongside the British driver. Harrison Scott though has the track position again. Well placed defensive manoeuvre. Pulcini looks to challenge into the second of the left-handers at turn 8. No way through for the Italian. And that's 2 times in as many laps that Pulcini's attempted to pull the pin, but hasn't been able to elevate himself up into third. And clearly Leonardo Pulcini would rather fancy his chance if he can clear Harrison Scott, maybe of chasing down Fiorvanti in second. And Menchaca, Calderon and Habsburg all leap over the crest in the road into the hairpin. There is Ferdinand Habsburg. Can maybe see his championship challenge driving away from him up the road. Certainly what he needs is for Harrison Scott to keep Leonardo Pulcini behind him for as long as possible. At least because if Pulcini were to find a way through, it'd be another 3 points. Favour of Leonardo Pulcini, and that starts to make the championship gap look very significant. Drop scores, keep it a little bit closer than absolutely, because in this championship the drivers' best 14 results count, as again Pulcini thinks about challenging to the inside of Harrison Scott. Again, Scott, who is used to the art of defensive driving, able to keep Pulcini behind him. Through turn 9, Habsburg trying to close up on Tatiana Calderon. Ferdinand Habsburg, having kept his powder dry during the first couple of laps, probably hasn't used his tyres quite as much as some of his rivals. That will give him the opportunity to push a little bit later on in the race, but he needs to start thinking about improved track position. And it was Habsburg who anticipated the lights maybe a little bit better than Leonardo Pulcini, but it's the Italian who moved up through the gears that little bit more smoothly. He's able to fight into the first corner again. He looks to the inside of Harrison Scott. Nothing doing there for Leonardo Pulcini. Who sets off in pursuit of Harrison Scott through turn 5. We're on the 6th lap of the race. Now, how long can Harrison Scott sustain this pressure? This being a slightly longer race than he would have had in the 2 Litre Euro Cup, where the race is 25 minutes plus a lap. It's potentially up to 35 minutes. Ter Martin watching on from the pit box, willing his driver on to the rostrum. But again, Pulcini is just chomping at the bit to try and find a way past, if he possibly can. On towards the chicane. Scott, though, pokes his way through. Still Habsburg in 7th, adrift of Tatiana Calderon. At the end of today's race, there are still going to be 81 points on offer once you factor in the point for fastest lap and pole position. Colton Herta, there he is, the race leader. He is on course for that point for fastest lap at the moment as well. 2nd place for Fioravanti, but we're all focused on this fight for 3rd, because that is where the tension is mounting for Pulcini. And really, Leonardo Pulcini is caught here. He's clearly quicker than Harrison Scott if he could get into clear air, but he doesn't want to risk a manoeuvre, get involved in a slight entanglement with the British driver, and it all ends in tears. And Pulcini not close enough to challenge down the back straight. Nonetheless, Scott just moves across towards the middle of the road. Now drifts back across the racing line. Meanwhile, Habsburg thinks about the move on Tatiana Calderon. Again, the Colombian driver defends the inside line very neatly. You don't know where to look. We've got these 2 pairs of battles involving the championship rivals, because Pulcini is trying to wind up the move on Scott. There you see it. Habsburg doing exactly the same with Tatiana Calderon. Neither driver quite close enough into the turn 9 right-hander. On towards turn 10. One of the challenges here at Jerez is the corners just come so quickly, one after the other. There's no time to rest. There are no long straights to get the run in the slipstream. There is Diego Menchaca, secure in 5th. And in the event that Habsburg were to come cruising up to his tail, also very well equipped to ride shotgun on his teammates' behalf. Now here is a look further down the field. Yihong Li, rather Daniel Pronenko, taking a trip through the gravel. Now Habsburg turns up the heat just as we get past 1/3 race distance. And what's interesting is that Ferdinand Habsburg and Leonardo Pulcini can almost run in the turbulent air of their rivals at will. The car's much more tightly bunched than perhaps we were expecting pre-race. But it often seems to be the case that when championships are on the line, the drivers are just able to dig that a little bit deeper and find the opportunity. As now Pulcini's got there on the Harrison Scott, and this time Scott has to cover the inside very preemptively. He covers it deep. Pulcini looks to the outside. Scott, though, will run him out wide. Pulcini draws alongside towards the left-hander. This is going to be brave from both drivers. Scott determined to try and burst it, but Pulcini goes through. Brilliant move from Leonardo Pulcini, working around the outside of Harrison Scott. It had been a great defence from the British driver, but Pulcini launches and propels himself past. So now Pulcini up into third position, makes the championship challenge for Ferdinand Habsburg that bit tougher. Habsburg really needs to start finding a way past the cars in front of him. And the first of them is going to be Tatiana Calderon. So Pulcini in third is on course for 15 points. Here's another look at the move. Absolutely magnificent stuff. Harrison Scott couldn't have done anything more. He had the car exactly where he needed to for the defence, but quite rightly Pulcini gets the round of applause from the team. Now Ferdinand Habsburg in 7th place with dropped scores is set to be 63 points adrift of Pulcini at the end of this race. There is the race leader, Colton Herter. 2nd place for Fioravanti. Question is, with 10 laps to play with, can Pulcini, now he's released into clear air, do something about Damiano Fioravanti? On Pulcini's first half lap in clear air, he took 0.3 of a second out of the Italian driver. Damiano Fioravanti, 5th in the championship. It's been a season of mixed fortunes for the Italian driver. Just 3 podiums along the way, best result being 2nd place in race 1 at Monza. And disappointment there for Nikitas Lobin, having raced so well in the early stages. He gets wheeled into the pit box. There you see the train of cars for 3rd. Now the real key here is going to be the lap time for Fioravanti versus that of Leonardo Pulcini. The gap between the pair of them was 2.8 seconds in the last sector. It's a 1:39.4 for Fioravanti. It's a 1:38.9 for Leonardo Pulcini. He takes half a second out of Damiano Fioravanti. And that could just be on, you know, for Pulcini. Meanwhile, Harrison Scott slipping into the clutches of Diego Menchaca, Tatiana Calderon and Ferdinand Habsburg. And Habsburg, as we are just over half race distance, has to find a way to gain a little bit more than the 6 points that are currently on offer for 7th. Because as things stand, Leonardo Pulcini won't win the championship today, but barring an absolute disaster, probably will claim it tomorrow. RP Motorsport following the progress of Damiano Fioravanti and Pulcini, level pegging on pace through the first sector in the lap. It's the second sector where they get in amongst some more corners, and that is where Pulcini takes another couple of seconds out of his compatriot. 4th, Harrison Scott has got Menchaca, then Calderon and Ferdinand Habsburg. Problem being here for Ferdinand Habsburg, that if he gambles all and retires, then that really does hand things to Pulcini. Now, is he close enough to challenge Calderon into the hairpin? Certainly thought about it. He couldn't quite draw alongside the Colombian, but instead Tatiana Calderon uses a little bit of a curbing exit. This is the first real opportunity for Ferdinand Habsburg to challenge for a little bit more. It's 6th place that he's looking for. Calderon covers the inside line and just sticks the car in the middle of the road. Habsburg looks to the outside. He's committed. It means he can't switch back for turn 2. And that's well defended from Tatiana Calderon. Frustrating for Ferdinand Habsburg, because he had certainly at that moment in time got the pace, but he just couldn't quite find the track position to give him the means to get around the Colombian. Now Diego Menchaca closing up on terms with Harrison Scott in the fight for 4th and 5th. Menchaca, really for the first time in the race, has been released, because with Tatiana Calderon being busy defending from Ferdinand Habsburg, it opens that up just a little bit. through the chicane. Habsburg regathers. He's got 7 laps and a corner to go. Pulcini in third, getting ever closer to Damiano Fioravanti, having gained another half a second on Fioravanti over the course of the last lap. So it's possible Pulcini might even slip a couple more points onto his tally. Harrison Scott going very well in fourth. So that fine defensive job that he did earlier on in the race from Pulcini. Got Kevin Andres with a 1 second penalty added to his race time for track limits. I can tell you on the time screen, but it's this fight for fourth which continues to simmer. And the most frustrated driver in this queue is Ferdinand Habsburg, because having set the pace in free practice yesterday, having gone toe-to-toe with Pulcini in qualifying, he just didn't get the jump off the line the way Pulcini did. He lost out with some track position on the first lap of the race as well. And thereafter, he's just not been able to progress up the order. Harrison Scott taking that very wide entry towards turn 8. He keeps in the boundaries of the track. It keeps Menchaca behind him as Habsburg gets ever closer to Tatiana Calderon. Calderon gets ever closer to Menchaca. They all form this queue. Behind Harrison Scott now. I can tell you that Damiano Fioravanti is running wide. Damiano Fioravanti has also picked up a 1 second penalty to be applied at the end of the race, and that means that Pulcini, if he can find another second relative to Fioravanti, may well get second place in the race almost by default. So Pulcini, it's just been that sort of season for him. The only real black spot was the collision with Colton Herta in race 2 at Silverstone, and now he might finish second in the race without having to do it on the road. Menchaca lining up for a run. Harrison Scott, but Diego Menchaca a little bit wayward through turn 5, maybe just caught in the turbulent air. It gives Tatiana Calderon the chance to close up on to Diego Menchaca. Menchaca parks the car in the middle of the road into the hairpin. Habsburg watches and waits. This is one of those times where when you watch from the garage, there's absolutely nothing you can do. And Ferdinand Habsburg's up against some very high caliber opposition here. Tatiana Calderon, very experienced. Diego Menchaca likewise, and Harrison Scott still in 4th place in the Teo Martin Motorsport car. Doing a fine job as they ride the curbs. Head towards the hairpin, just 5 to run. Herta's lead over Fioravanti is significant now. Leonardo Pulcini is within a second here of Damiano Fioravanti, so essentially once you adjust the times, Pulcini is up into second place. And it just means ever more points for Pulcini. Super slow motion of our race leader Colton Herta. We have not seen very much of Colton Herta at all during the race, and he's romping clear. He's 5.5 seconds up on Damiano Fioravanti. It's still this fight for 4th, which focuses the interest, but also now the battle for second position. But don't forget, this is not a move that Pulcini has to make on the road. If he stays within second Damiano Fioravanti, he will get second place as a result of that 1 second penalty for the RP Motorsport driver. That means that on dropped scores, Leonardo Pulcini will be 66 points clear of Ferdinand Habsburg if things stay as they are. Means on non-drop scores, Pulcini will be 76 points clear of the Austrian. Either way, Ferdinand Habsburg, he's going to have to try and gain some places in this race. He's also going to have to hope that he puts the car on pole and wins the remaining trio of races. Things may be going against Pulcini. So Fioravanti and Pulcini fighting for second, and the way that Pulcini is going at Fioravanti here, I'm not sure that he's aware that Fioravanti's got a 1 second penalty, because Pulcini rolls the dice and gets into an entanglement. That could undo all the great work that he's done, but over the course of the last 5 laps, Pulcini has consistently been several tenths of a second up on Damiano Fioravanti. They swing out of turn 5, down the back straight. Just 4 laps remaining. They're on the 15th of 18. Herta leads. That's the battle for second between Fioravanti and Pulcini, as the Campos car of Leonardo Pulcini again running almost at ease in the turbulent air behind Damiano Fioravanti. 4th place it remains Harrison Scott, 5th Diego Menchaca, 6th Tatiana Calderon, 7th Ferdinand Habsburg, and 8th Kevin Andres, 9th Yi Hong Lee, and 10th Amaya Weidenathan. There you see the confirmation of that 1 second penalty for Damiano Fioravanti in car 3. And Pulcini at the end of the last lap was just 4 tenths of a second adrift. As they accelerate out of the final turn onto the 16th lap of the race. There you see the gap, 0.4 of a second. That's enough for Pulcini to take second. Doesn't need to do it on the road. He doesn't need to get into trouble. He's just driving with that level of assurance and confidence that has been steadily building through the course of the season. First half of the year, he used to just run off and hide in the distance, but now he is prepared to get his racing face on, get his elbows out, and really start to hassle. It's just wonderful when you see a driver who's so completely in control of their car and just well ahead really what the car's doing, able to toy with his rival at will, as Pulcini looks to the inside of Fioravanti and goes through. Damiano Fioravanti, by the time that Pulcini had pulled the pin, was unable to defend, so second place on the road now for Leonardo Pulcini. His next target is Colton Herta, but Colton 7.5 seconds up the road with 2.5 laps to go. I'll suggest that even that is outside of the reach of Pulcini, as is currently fastest lap. Ferdinand Habsburg continuing in 8th. Here's another look at the move. Pulcini came so late, and Fioravanti, if he'd covered by the time Pulcini had gone for the move, it would have been a chop, and it would have ended with some damaged Delaras. That is a nervous smile from the Campos pit wall. They didn't really want to see Pulcini rolling the dice in quite that way. Here is the race leader though, Colton Herta, into the penultimate lap of the race. And Herta set to claim his 3rd victory of the season in the way that he claimed his previous 2, which is by utterly dominating proceedings. Nobody could get anywhere near him at the Red Bull Ring, and it's been the same this afternoon here. Now, what about this fight for 4th? Still Harrison Scott from Diego Menchaca, Tatiana Calderon and Ferdinand Habsburg. It's been a really fine drive this from Harrison Scott. He couldn't quite keep Pulcini behind him, but he's done a very good job thereafter of managing the challenge of Diego Menchaca. It's Ferdinand Habsburg still can't find a way past Tatiana Calderon. Must be thoroughly sick of the sight of her rear spoiler, because he spent the whole race tucked up behind it. But no opportunity has presented itself to ease past the RP Motorsport car. He's only got a lap and a third to play with here. Ferdinand Habsburg needs really these points if he can. There you see what it means in the championship. Pulcini 74 points. Up on Ferdinand Habsburg. And all this said and done, drop scores will have a little bit of a bearing on things, which makes the task slightly more surmountable for the Austrian, but only slightly so, as across the line, Herta into his final lap. Habsburg is really caught here, because if he rolls the dice and clatters in to Tatiana Calderon, essentially that is game over in terms of the title fight. So on one hand, he needs the place. On the other hand, risking everything perhaps will be sending back more in the long run. None of this is of any concern for Colton Herta. He is well set for consolidating third position in the championship. It has been once more an imperious drive from the American, at one with the Carlin Motorsport car. Never headed from that pole position earlier on, and he is well on course to do the gentleman's set. Pole position, fastest lap, and the race victory. Heads into the chicane at turn 11. It's going to be another big win as well for Herta by the standards of the Euroformula Open. To finish some 7.5 seconds up on your rival really takes some doing, as he heads into the last corner now. Colton Herta and Carlin about to score their third win of the year, as Herta accelerates, takes the checkered flag, and victory in Jerez. The jubilation of the British team. Second place, and surely one hand on the championship crown for Leonardo Pulcini as the Campos squad celebrate. Completing the podium is Damiano Fioravanti. It's been a great drive to fourth in his debut for Harrison Scott and the Teo Marti Motorsport car. Fifth for Menchaca, sixth for Calderon, seventh Ferdinand Habsburg ahead of Kevin Andres, Yihong Li, and Maya Vaidonathan completing the top 10. Ahead of Anthony Patak, Tanat Sathi and Thirikul, Vasily Romanov, Julio Moreno, with then Daniel Pranenko, Hasan Abdullayev and Kansi Kasiri finishing some way back. Well, Colton Herta, in his first year of international competition, learning these tracks as he's been going, has always been ferociously fast, and when he's been able to get out clear at the front of the field, nobody's been able to get anywhere near him. In terms of the fastest lap of the race, he's taken it by 0.3 of a second. Look down the classification, Herta wins it from fighting drive from Pulcini. Damiano Fioravanti in third, Harrison Scott, great debut for fourth, had Diego Menchaca, Tatiana Calderon. Disappointment for Ferdinand Habsburg, I'd suggest, in seventh, clear of Yihong Li. Kevin Andres and Maya Vaidonathan mean all three Carlin cars up in the top 10. Fastest lap also going the way of Colton Herta as well. Anthony Patak just outside the top 10 in 11th. Nikita Zlobin at only retirement in what was another very action-packed race, but very, very clean. So in terms of the championship then, it's 74 points. That's Pulcini's advantage from Habsburg, with 81 points to play for. Once drop scores are taken into account, it is still very hard work for Ferdinand Habsburg. Colton Herta, third in the standings. Down the rest of the points scorers from the season. So to a halt in Parc Fermé for our race winner, Colton Herta, dominant in Jerez. So out of the car hops Herta, and he was very cool, calm and collected, but I'm sure that he enjoyed that enormously as he heads over to the congratulations of the Carlin team. So they celebrate victory in Jerez. Likewise, congratulations from Campos Racing to Leonardo Pulcini. Great job for Pulcini. Once you factor in that Scott was running as a wild card. It means that Habsburg essentially gets the points for 6th in the championship. It only really helps him out with a couple of points and still really puts the onus on Pulcini just to have a steady day tomorrow, and that will be enough to give him the crown as Damiano Fiorvanti weighs in. 3rd place. Thumbs up from Colton Herter.
Position, fastest lap, flag-to-flag victory.
Yeah, just all came together like Red Bull Ring. The car's been amazing all weekend, and we just put it together, and it's a good end, yeah.
Okay, what do you expect for tomorrow?
I think we got to do the same, follow it up, do a double win this weekend, and hopefully pull an even bigger gap tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much. Now go for the podium.
So Colton Herter, all smiles as he heads to the podium to be joined by Pulcini and Fiorvanti. Let's take a look back then at the best of the race, and off the line Colton Herter got the jump. Behind though it was row 2 where we were focused, and Pulcini getting a better start compared to Habsburg as Harrison Scott launched the inside. He snatched 3rd, and as the Austrian was pushed wide, it allowed Diego Menchaca and Tatiana Calderon to sneak through, demoting Habsburg to 7th on the road. The opening stage of the race were, of course, frenetic. Everybody was jostling for position, but Pulcini was the man on the move. Clearly confident, got a great car underneath him, pressurising Harrison Scott for 3rd. For about the 3rd of the race though, Scott in his debut did a remarkable job of keeping the Italian championship leader at bay, but eventually Pulcini executing a superb switchback manoeuvre as they came out of the hairpin into the left-handers, and that was enough to elevate the Italian to 3rd position. Within a few laps though, Pulcini had got onto terms with Damiano Fiorvanti, and despite Fiorvanti having a penalty which would have given Pulcini 2nd anyway, Pulcini darted through. At the front though, Colton Herter was completely dominant, and he scored his 3rd victory of the season. 2nd place for Leonardo Pulcini has put the championship very much within his grasp for tomorrow's race, with Damiano Fiorvanti completing the podium and Harrison Scott scoring an excellent 4th on his debut from Menchaca, Calderon and Habsburg. So plenty for the crowd to enjoy here in Jerez. As the Campos team cheer their driver, Leonardo Pulcini, up to 2nd on the rostrum, and it's a standing ovation from Carlin as Colton Herter takes his place on the top of the rostrum in Jerez.
De velocidad de Jerez, en lo más alto del ritmo está el piloto norteamericano Colton Herta. En su honor escuchamos el himno nacional de Estados Unidos. Magnífica la carrera, el dominio durante todo el fin de semana.
Applause for our podium finishers. Very entertaining race in the heat in Jerez. So third place for Damiano Fioravanti. He may have hoped for a little bit better, but nonetheless it's another trip to the podium. The Italian, it helps with his push to possibly fourth in the championship standings. For Leonardo Porcini, it's not the win, but it is almost as good as one, given that he's finished well clear of his title rival Ferdinand Hansberg up on the rostrum, and he knows it. So do the Campos team. They roar from the pit lane. And Colton Herter receives the spoils of victory, goes to salute the Carlin team. Carlin continuing their fantastic debut season in the series. A third triumph, but they've been podium contenders in every single race. Drivers will pose for the photos before we turn our attention towards the rookie podium. Don't forget that we will be back racing tomorrow, and tomorrow's race gets underway at 12:30 Central European time, and our coverage will start about 15 minutes before then. Well, Fioravanti winning the battle to uncork the bubbly. Porcini and Herter celebrate. Colton Herter will be back in a moment's time to stand on the top step of the rookie podium, which he claimed from Harrison Scott and Ferdinand Hansberg. Chance to again enjoy again in super slow motion Herter at work in the Carlin car. The most minimal of steering corrections, letting the car do the hard work, living right on the aerodynamic limits of the car. Plenty to discuss behind the podium.
Next year will be Mexico and Bahrain and Texas.
Still smiling from all the drivers. And again, a very close but clean race. Although there was a lot on the line, we didn't see any overly defensive manoeuvres, didn't see any particularly risky moves to gain ground either. It shows why the Euroformula Open is so highly regarded by drivers and the teams. So on to the rookie rostrum. Third place for Ferdinand Hansberg in the DriveX car. A frustrating race for him, bottled up behind Tatiana Calderon. Second place for Harrison Scott. Great performance for the Termarty Motorsport driver on his debut. And Colton Herter back to the top step of the rostrum. So a double triumph for Colton Herter. He's had pretty much the perfect day in Jerez. Race victory, fastest lap and all of that from pole position. Well, Ferdinand Hansberg has done just enough to keep the title battle going into tomorrow. And tomorrow is another day. It's a fresh qualifying session first thing tomorrow morning. And it could well be his chance to get onto the top step of the podium and keep it open until Barcelona. For Harrison Scott, a rookie podium on his debut, will he be able to get onto the overall race rostrum tomorrow? For Colton Herter, when he's been winning this year, he's completely swept the weekend. As he smiles and celebrates in the heat of Jerez. So we will be racing at 12:30 local time tomorrow. Make sure you join us for that. But until then, from Ben Evans in Jerez, it's goodbye.
por supuesto también llega el momento para festejar. Se miran con cara así de complicidad como diciendo, ¿la liamos o no la liamos?